Good afternoon. I'm Larry Reidy, and this is Thursday, August 14th, around 3 o'clock. And I just want to thank everybody that has volunteered to be a guest podcaster on my President segment. It's interesting. Everybody that's listening to it is getting a little different perspective of certain presidents. The latest one is Tim Volz is doing John Quincy Adams, our sixth president. And remember, you go to larryreedy.net. If you're just listening to one, you want to go back to the beginning, just hit the search bar for P1. That'll take you back to George Washington. But I really want to thank everybody that's listening. I hope to get more of a listening audience. It's starting a little slow, but I'm sure it'll pick up as the weather changes. There's 4 million podcasters in the world. Summertime is tough. Everybody's got something going on outdoors, but I think we're going to do fine with it. So I still need, I think, 17 volunteers yet to be guest podcasters. Call me, 812-871-4224. I'm doing all the research. All you have to do is get on the podcast and tell a president's story. But the main reason I'm doing this today, I've been asked by several people, even though I mentioned this on other podcasts, why I'm doing podcasts and how I started. And, just just an old guy that's bored, maybe, but I don't know. But September 14th will be my 3rd year, and I'll be at probably 430 podcasts. But I've jotted some notes down, and I want to tell everybody who hasn't heard this before how I started, okay? I never planned on being a podcaster. If you had told me a few years back that I'd be sitting behind a microphone talking to people every week, I would have laughed. I'm not exactly the guy who grew up with a tape recorder in one hand and a dream of being on the radio. It all began when I was a guest on 2 different podcasts, and they were both actually at Batesville Liquor Store. And we just had good conversations, no script, no nothing, told a few stories, a lot of laughs. And after a second interview on their podcast, I sat in the kitchen one night and I was thinking, I could do that. That was fun. And then I thought, but who the hell will listen to me host my own show? Well, it turns out more people than I expected. When I decided to give it a try, I didn't know the first thing about podcasting. I didn't know about RSS feeds or analytics. I didn't have a marketing plan or a team. All I had was a microphone, a Rodecaster Pro, a laptop, and loved interviewing people, talking to people, and listening to their stories. And here's the thing, I didn't want to make some stiff, overproduced program. I wanted this to feel like you and I were sitting at my table, either in the Morton building or my dining room table. The kind of place where you don't check your watch, you just enjoy the conversation. So I finally hit record. Those first episodes were, let's just say, a learning experience. My sound levels weren't perfect. My editing is still non-existent. It takes too much time. And I still don't know how many people are listening because of the statistics are sometimes really screwed up. But little by little, the audience grew. People began to write in. They'd say, Larry, I feel like I'm in a room with you, or your show reminds me of talking with my grandfather. God almighty. That's when I realized I stumbled onto something important. And it wasn't just talking into a mic, it was about the connection. From the beginning, I knew this podcast wouldn't be about big names or famous events. I'd cover presidents, criminals, lawmen, beer and whiskey, veterans, women in business, you name it, I've tried it. And just trying to make it interesting for somebody to listen to somebody other than Joe Rogan or Megyn Kelly or, there's so many good podcasts on, and I realize there's so many media items to occupy people's times. You're just not going to get everybody to listen, but hopefully, I really hope this president thing catches on big time because it's about our country, the history of our country. But anyway, the one podcast that really kind of changed the way I thought about this whole project was my friend Jack. So here's the story of my old friend Jack. Some friendships were stitched into your life so deep you can't imagine a world without them. Jack and I first met as boys back when summers meant baseball, sports, and in our later years in high school, drinking beer, partying, dating, the whole bit. So when I started Larry Reed's America, I knew I wanted Jack on my podcast. He had one of those voices and one of the guys, steady, warm, with a little humor. And one September afternoon, he came over to my Morton building. I set up the microphones, told him just pretend it's you and me talking. Forget the mics were even there. And we talked. We talked about his childhood, about our friendship in high school, about raising his family, about the lessons of life it taught him. We laughed a lot, and there were a few quiet moments where we just sat the way you do when a friend doesn't need to fill in every silence. 2 months later, Jack was gone. At his celebration of life, his daughter came up to me and said, thank you for giving me my dad's voice forever. She told me she'd listened to the episode 3 times already. She said it felt like it was sitting right there with her. That moment, that's when it hit me. This podcast wasn't just about entertainment. It was about history or interviews. It was about preserving people. Voices fade from memories, faces blur in old photographs, but a recording, that's different. A recording keeps a person's laugh, their pauses, the way their voice catches when they're about to tell a story. From that day on, every time I sat down to record with someone, I think of Jack. I think about the gift that one hour gave to his family. And I remember that for someone out there, what we're recording might one day be the most important conversation that you left behind. So anyway, that's kind of my purpose for podcasting. And also, I've met some great people with great stories. Sometimes I'm getting problems with like right now, my voice is fading a little bit. I have good days, bad days. This is an old man thing. Yeah, your voice is good one day, next day it's not. And Nancy keeps telling me if I keep my mouth shut more often, my voice wouldn't be strained, but that's the way I am. But anyway, if anyone is interested in podcasting, feel free to call me. I can tell you what I learned the hard way, the equipment that you really should have to do this. And it's 812-871-4224. And one thing that is really gratifying, and And I've had a few experiences where somebody after Mass one evening, gentleman I've seen him at church, but that's it, come up, shook my hand, told me thanks for doing the podcast. I've had other people stop me in Kroger. I had one guy at shifts a few weeks ago. We had a little partial family gathering there, and this fellow bought me a drink. I had we were in the bar later, no idea who he was, and he told me he listens to my podcast and wanted to thank me by buying a drink. And it turned out, after we were talking for a while, I knew his father's dead now, but I knew his father real well, and he's from Greensburg, Indiana. But, and I know, my podcasts aren't going to reach everybody, they never will. And I don't know if I'll ever have a big time celebrity on, but I got something better. I got your neighbors. I got people that are everyday people that have an interesting story to tell. And then I go off on my tangent, like I'm having a lot of fun with my dumbass criminals, and I hope everybody that's listening to them is having the same joy of listening to stuff like that. But I've got 20 of the president's podcasts recorded. I've got, I think, 7 more commitments to do podcasts. I want to have everything done by either the end of October or the 1st of November. They come out every Wednesday. Again, Tim Volt is up now doing John Quincy Adams. Tim's a great guy, did a great podcast. I hope everybody listens to it and goes back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, it's just P1. Everything's designated P by a number of presidents. So thanks for listening. I don't have really anything else to say. Again, if anybody wants to volunteer, we still got some open spots for guest podcasters. And I'd like to have more women on. I've got some scheduled, but I'd like to have more of a balance because there's more men doing the podcast than the women. And again, I'm doing all the research, putting it in podcast form. All you have to do is set up a time. If you're out of state and listening to this, because this is going to be on YouTube, if you're out of state listening to this, I'd be glad to do a remote podcast with you, because we're in several states, several countries. In fact, it's kind of amazing. The last 3 months, 18% of my podcasts are in foreign countries, and the last 6 months, last 12 months, it was 8.5%. But overall, it's about 7%. And India now is #1 as far as the listening audience goes. So anyway, thanks for listening. Boy, I'm at 13, almost 14 minutes. So God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And I will talk to you on the next podcast.